Good evening, members. Good evening and very warm welcome from Team Training and Education. Members, today we are conducting our 54th webinar in Gyan Ganga's webinar series. And today's our topic is hydrostatic locking of internal combustion engine part 2. We already completed part 1 and our faculty is our own Mr. R.P. Gupta sir from Ludhiana. So we have already conducted our part 1 and today we are conducting part 2. Whatever the questions member have sent, we have tried to accommodate all the questions in today's session. If anything is missing, definitely you can write us on training@isla.net. We'll give you the we'll get back with the answer for this particular question. This is a very crucial topic, particularly for the motor surveyors, and that's why we are conducting part 2. So all the members once again welcome to this webinar. Whatever the questions, you can write us on training@isla.net and you can put it in chat box also or question answer session also. I request R.P. Gupta sir to start with today's session.
Thank you, Mulke Saab. Good evening, everybody. Today we had some technical problem at my own end, where my desktop mic was not picking up sound, so I had to hurriedly shift to a laptop. So thank God the things have come in line again, of course with the guidance of our ISLA team, who had been telling me how to do it. So we start today hydrostatic locking of internal combustion engine part 2. I have myself given part 1 on this hydrostatic locking about 2 months back. Some of you might have seen that presentation also, and some may be of course new to directly onto this part 2. Just for the sake of review, I will just first review what we had covered in part 1. We had already covered in part 1 the topics. Number 1, what is hydrostatic locking? 2, construction and internal working of engine. Previous time we were not able to show this video on construction and internal working of engine, though I liked it very much and I want all of you to see it. So previous time it was not possible due to technical reasons. I think this time our team has done it. So we will again view this video, which is hardly 3-4 minutes. So hydrostatic locking process, its causes and results. This we had dealt with in detail in part 1. Then diagnostics, loss minimization, myth on hydrolocking. That was a great topic, myth on hydrolocking, which we had tried to remove, and based on that theory itself, our part 2 is coming. Hydrostatic locking and standard package policy. We had correlated hydrostatic locking and seen as to what standard package policy offers and what not. Then there were case studies. After a review of part 1, I would like to all of you to see this video, which is a wonderful video, which gives you total insight of engine construction and its working, internal working. So here it is going to start.
Comment engine generates power from the expansion of compressed air in a contained cylinder with the help of fuel. That is why it's called as an internal combustion engine. Before getting into the working, let's see the main parts involved in the working of an engine. First, the crankshaft. This is the part which converts the linear motion of the piston to a rotational force. Next, the pistons and the piston rods. The pistons will be pushed down by the expansion of compressed air and turns the crankshaft. And the valves, which controls the flow of air and fuel into the cylinders. These valves are driven by the intake camshaft and the exhaust camshaft, and the camshafts are driven by the crank itself using a timing belt. There will be idler pulleys and a tensioner pulley to hold the belt tight in place. This here is the internal structure of a 4-stroke inline 4-cylinder DOHC engine, which is commonly found in most hatchback and sedan cars. A 4-stroke engine should pass through 4 different strokes to complete one cycle to produce power. They are intake, compression, power, and exhaust stroke. The crank to camshaft ratio is 2:1, which means it will take 2 crank revolutions to complete one camshaft revolution, and the camshafts are designed in a responsive manner to open or close based on the corresponding strokes of each cylinder. Let's take a look at a single cylinder and see how a 4-stroke engine works in detail. In order to ignite the air-fuel mixture, a spark plug is used. This will ignite the compressed air-fuel mixture with the help of an electrical spark. We will take it down by each stroke. The intake stroke. The inlet valve opens and the downward movement of the piston creates a suction. This pulls the air-fuel mixture into the cylinder. Once the air-fuel mixture is in the cylinder, compression stroke begins compressing the mixture. At this time, both inlet and outlet valves stays closed. At the end of compression stroke, the air-fuel mixture is ignited by the spark plug. The explosion exerts pressure and pushes the piston down. This is the power stroke which produces power to the crank. Exhaust stroke, the outlet valves opens and the piston pushes out the burned gas. The cycle starts again from intake stroke, keeping the engine running and produces power. For a carburetor engine, the air and fuel are mixed inside the carburetor assembly and fed to the cylinders. In the case of a fuel-injected engine, the fuel is injected into the intake manifold or directly into the cylinders. Since only a power stroke produces power, you may wonder how the engine turns continuously. Well, the answer is in the crank itself. The flywheel and the crank counterweights provides momentum, which keeps the crankshaft from stopping immediately. For a 4-cylinder engine, considering any time instance, one cylinder is always in power stroke, which produces more power and less vibrations comparing to a single cylinder engine. And that is how a car engine produces power in simple. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more presentations from Autotech Labs.
So this is wonderful video of internal working of the internal combustion engine, and based on this, our whole analysis as to how hydrostatic locking occurs and all this that we had covered in part 1. So now we move on further in our presentation. So next is conclusions of part 1. So we will just review. One conclusion was hydrostatic locking takes place due to number 1, ingress of water into the combustion chamber or chambers of the engine. 2, back action of momentum of the car onto the cylinder piston, which is stopped due to the incompressibility of water. So this was one as to how hydrostatic locking takes place. Second was self-starter has no role in causing damages to the connecting rod, etc., as it does not have the capacity to rotate a hydro-locked engine flywheel or crankshaft. It just, if engine is already hydro-locked, self-starter does not have the capacity even to rotate the flywheel or crankshaft. And what to talk of damaging the connecting rod. This we had seen in part 1 in detail. Third was, we had drawn certain thumb rules of engine damage. Based on our theory of hydrostatic locking, we had drawn certain verifiable conclusions. Number 1, more the number of cylinders in the engine, more prone it would be to the damage. That means if 6-cylinder engine would be more prone to damage as compared to 4-cylinder engine, or down the line as compared to 3-cylinder or 2-cylinder or 1-cylinder. So more the number of cylinders in the engine, more prone it would be to the damage. Number 2, bending order of the connecting rods would be as per the firing order of the engine. So this is also a conclusion which is verifiable. And many of you might have seen the hydrostatic locking cases, and there, if you make proper analysis, you will find that the bending order of the connecting rods is also as per the firing order of the engine. So that is in our video also, he has specifically told us firing order 1342 or 1243 in a 4-cylinder engine. Third conclusion was, extent of bending to connecting rod would successively decrease as the thrust in successive connecting rods will keep on decreasing. Here, if starting bending is in number 1 cylinder, then the 1-3, then the other connecting rod successive to first one on bending would be 3, and this bend in 3 will be lesser than that in 1. So this is also again verifiable. You will find if number of connecting rods are bent, then their bending is subsequently decreasing and decreasing. So this testifies our theory of hydrostatic locking. Now coming to part 2, our plan of study would be as such. As a matter of fact, subsequent to part 1 of the webinar, we received some views and queries that led to further thinking and study on the subject. Some of these were, now there were 3 queries or views that came to us after part 1. So I would like to just dwell on those also, so that you can understand as to how our study and questions, they are going hand in hand. Number 1, there was a view, exposure of air filter to the inundation water causes blockage of the air filter, micro or nanopores by trash and clay present in water. So this results in choking of air passage to the engine, termed as hydrosealing, and stalling of engine. So this was a view that since there is present clay and trash in the water, and this clay and trash will clog the air filter, and complete hydrosealing will be there, and no air or air would be passing on to the combustion chambers, and the engine would stall, just stall, because of lack of oxygen. This view pointed towards the theory of self-starter causing the actual damage. So as per this view, it was that the theory of self-starter causing the actual damage is correct. So we had thinking on this. First 3 conclusions that we had drawn, these are not verifiable if the damage is attributed to self-starter, because self-starter will not cause subsequent lesser damage to subsequent connecting rods. Second, it would not be as per the firing order, because when you operate the self starter, it may be anywhere of the firing order, so it will not be in firing order. So apart from those, we have taken certain theories in this part 2 also, contrary to this view. Second was, based on my theory of damage to engine by action of own momentum of the car, including its own power being developed just before the moment of hydrolocking. This is very important. Power being developed by the engine just before the moment of hydrolocking. So there was a query on hydrolocking in an auto transmission car. So this was a query from an automobile engineer as to what would be the fate of hydrolocking in an automatic transmission car. So we will take up this also. Again, this would confirm to our theory of hydrolocking. There was a query from Bangalore on engine damage to Bharat-Benz vehicle, which had toppled or overturned upside down. So that surveyor brother had encountered damage to engine in a overturned Bharat-Benz vehicle. Likewise, I had also encountered such losses. So we would discuss here with a case study with relevance to our topic. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir.
Sachin
Perfect.
ji? Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Now, reported theory of hydrosealing of engine and its stalling. Let's on micro analysis of a micro or nanopore of a filter element, it seems logical that such a small pore would get clogged with clay and trash present in inundation water. Thus, they say that the filter element gets sealed and no water or air would pass through it, and due to lack of air or oxygen, engine would merely stall. This is the view of hydrosealing. Secondly, damage seen on the engine at its connecting rod, etc., is then attributed to attempts of the driver to restart the engine by repeatedly operating the self-starter. So then they term it as consequential loss. Whatever connecting rod has bent, that they term as consequential loss. So this was the theory of hydrosealing, which I could understand. Now counter to this, let's see what happens. Number one, filter element pores, which may be in lakhs and crores, are to be considered on macro basis, not on micro basis, not for one single pore, but we have to consider them. Their behavior is to be analyzed as a group of lakhs and crores of pores. Second, water has a property of cleaning and suspended clay. Water has a property of cleaning and suspended clay and trash, an action of clogging. So there are two actions. Sunny, please. So there are two opposite actions of inundation water. One is cleaning property. So whatever dust or clay is already in the pores, if clean water goes through that, then it cleans that dirt, already present dirt also. And second opposite action is that clay and trash present in inundation water, that causes clogging of the pores also. So water would be cleaning and washing some pores of their dust and trash. Dust and trash of inundation water would be passing through some of the holes due to the suction pressure. Suction pressure and suction pressure of the turbocharger also. So partially clogging some pores and fully clogging some other pores. So there will not be complete hydrosealing. There will be some partial sealing and some cleaning also. All these actions would be occurring simultaneously in a fraction of a second. What will be this fraction of a second? Because stalling of the engine or hydrolocking of the engine would be occurring in a fraction of a second. Let us see what this would be. At an RPM of 3000 in a 4-cylinder engine, there is a suction stroke every 20 milliseconds. So if water enters one combustion chamber, it can hydrolock the engine. So number 6, hydro sealing would be there and it would not be total. So with this analysis, we understand that hydro sealing would be partial up to some extent, but not total. Partial hydro sealing also explains that there is not a full blast of water into the combustion chamber. That's why in certain cases water is only very small or even lesser than the clearance volume, and then it doesn't even, it may not even stall, but it may be more. And depending, as per our discussion of part 1, we will proceed further because it has already been discussed. Of course, water entry would also depend on cover of the inlet pipe cross section by water level over a time span of say 20 milliseconds only. So the whole thing happens just in milliseconds. 20 milliseconds, it may be 10 milliseconds, it may be 30 milliseconds, or whatever it is. Now here is a case of air filter. This is Mercedes E220 car. Here we can see that by visual inspection of the air filter itself, we see varying extent of clogging and clearing of the air filter. So here it is more, even air filter folds have opened out at some place because water and air, they make their passage. We don't even understand as to from where it has come, but it has it is not complete hydro sealing. Next, we have another filter, and these are all hydrostatic lock cases. BMW X530D car. This air filter has two elements. One is inner and the other is outer. The inner is more fine and outer is relatively lesser fine. It has bigger holes, pores, as compared to the inner one. So here also we see a different pattern. There are certain gray areas, certain dark areas, which show that there is not uniform sealing and water must have passed through some of the filter element. So this analysis verifies the theory of hydrolocking of the engine that attributes the damages to number 1, ingress of water into the combustion chamber or chambers of the engine. Number 2, back action of momentum of the car onto the cylinder piston, which is stopped due to incompressibility of water. So self-starter has no role in causing damages to the connecting rod, etc., as it does not have the capacity even to rotate a hydro-locked engine flywheel or crankshaft, and what to talk bending a connecting rod. Now let us see hydro-locking and auto transmission. In auto transmission, a torque converter takes the place of a mechanical clutch, which is in a manual transmission. The main function of torque converter is to allow the load to be isolated from the main power source, that is engine. It isolates engine from the car wheels, we can say, or from the transmission box of the car. It sits between the engine and the transmission. So this is clear. It is located between the engine and transmission in the transmission line. As the clutch separates the engine from the load when it stops, torque converter also isolates the engine from the load and keeps engine running when the vehicle stops. So here is a torque converter. We will just see its principle of working. And this is a torque converter assembly. Onto this is mounted onto the flywheel of the engine. And this shaft goes to the auto transmission input shaft. This is auto transmission input shaft. This shaft goes to the gearbox. And notches on this bigger pipe are to provide engagement to the pump of the transmission. In the automatic transmission, there is a hydraulic pump also that controls shifting of gears automatically. So for that, pump is required to put hydraulic oil under pressure for its operation of the control valves, etc. So this is the closed assembly. And now here we are seeing this opened out assembly. This side is the engine. This side is the auto transmission. This is input shaft for the auto transmission. So this outer casing is opened out here. To the outer casing, this is all filled with automatic transmission fluid, oil, we call it in general. So this whole thing is filled with oil. This is a hydraulic pump, vane pump, which is coupled onto the outer casing. So it is rotating with the engine flywheel. It is rotating with the casing is mounted on the flywheel. So this is rotating in this direction as this arrow is showing. What this pump is doing, it is just lifting, its vanes are lifting oil from the center and pushing the oil to the periphery of this whole pump vanes. From the periphery, oil under pressure falls onto the turbine. This is a turbine, falls onto the turbine vanes and then tries to move this turbine in this same direction. In the same direction. So this turbine, oil from under pressure from periphery of the turbine moves on to the center of the turbine by the action of vanes, and from the center of the turbine, oil which is falling down is just picked up by this stator. This stator directs oil flow from periphery to center by 90 degrees onto the, it directs oil onto the center of the pump. So in that way, there is still residual pressure on the oil, and that is further boosted by this pump. So in this stator helps us in torque multiplying. At the start of the vehicle, the wheels require more torque due to road friction and all. So this torque converter is also a torque multiplier for slow RPMs. So this the whole thing works like this. Now let us see when this flywheel or piston of the engine is stopped due to hydro-locking. When that is stopped, then that means this pump is stopped. But this input shaft, which is positively coupled with the wheels of the car, so this will still be rotating. So this will be rotating. That means this turbine will also be rotating. But this turbine cannot lift water, this oil from the center and act as a pump because of its particular configuration of the vanes. So oil will just keep on churning here, and it will not transmit power from this turbine at the end of the periphery, and from the end of the periphery, this pump, basically it is a pump, this will not act as a turbine. So when this will not act as a turbine, this will not move the flywheel. In a way, we call it, this is one-way transmitter of power. Torque converter can transmit power only from the engine towards the gearbox or auto transmission, and not vice versa. So this is the peculiar property of torque converter. So we sum up functions of a torque converter. It transfers power from engine to the transmission input shaft. It drives the front hydraulic pump of the transmission. Just as you will recall, I had told you that these notches, they couple with transmission hydraulic pump also. They are providing drive to the hydraulic pump also. So it drives the front hydraulic pump of the transmission. It isolates engine from the load when the vehicle is stationary, vehicle is not moving. It multiplies the torque of the engine and transmits it to the transmission. It almost doubles the torque output. 5. It transfers power from engine to transmission and not the other way around. Now, let me tell you one thing more in this. When the car engine and everything is just stabilizing in its movement, in that case, there is no relative movement of this turbine and this pump. So the whole assembly moves as one unit. It rotates as one unit. So that time we can say that it is just acting as a fluid coupler. So that is another property of this. Conclusion on hydro-locking and auto transmission. Now let us see what happens. Torque converter being one-way transmitter of power, there would not be any action of thrust from the momentum of the car wheels on the piston, which is stalled by incompressible liquid in combustion chamber. Only force acting on the piston would be, in that case, that force which is stored at the moment in the flywheel and the crankshaft only. So this is the momentum which is stored in flywheel and crankshaft only, that will be acting on the stalled piston, and that would only stall the engine and not damage it. So there will be minimal force on this, so it will just stall the engine no matter how much water has entered into the combustion chamber. So in automatic transmission car, there would be minimal damage due to hydrostatic locking. So this is another conclusion which is verifiable, and my friends there, we can have consultations, and we can look into the things to verify this aspect of hydro locking, whether there is any damage in auto transmission or battery low हो गई. चल जाओगी? हाँ चलाओ चलो. अच्छा, okay. Car wheels on the piston. So this is one conclusion on auto transmission. Actually, my laptop battery was down. Actually, this is not my laptop, my son's laptop. So I am not used to this laptop. So this gentleman is just helping me in the technicalities of this. ਇਹਦਾ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਇਹਦਾ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੈ ਹਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ okay sorry for the disturbance. Now hydrostatic locking and Bharat-Benz commercial vehicles. So auto transmission we have discussed. I'll be looking forward to feedback from my fellow surveyors or their analysis and their viewpoints on these things. So now, actually, this is also a part of research, which would be a byproduct of our working as a professional surveyor, and this research should help us also and industry also in understanding the intricacies of engineering and insurance, and then correlation between them. So now we come to the third point of our today's presentation: hydrostatic locking and Bharat-Benz commercial vehicles. During our surveys of commercial vehicles, it was observed that in some vehicles which had overturned, there was damage to engine also, and such damage extended to the level of breakage of connecting rod and in some cases even engine block also. Such losses were encountered not only in some isolated cases, but in a number of cases. So we made a detailed study on this, particularly after the query of my brother near Bangalore. Number one, what we observed in Euro 4 engines, there is a provision in Bharat-Benz vehicles that the crankcase breather from the tappet cover was connecting through a pipe to the fresh intake pipe of the turbocharger. I will show you in picture also. Please note this. There is a pipe that connects tappet cover to turbocharger intake pipe. Turbocharger is located on the right side of the engine. As such, the breather pipe of around 1 inch dia is coming from right front corner of the tappet cover. When the vehicle overturns onto its right or upside down, engine oil in the sump flows onto the tappet cover through the push rod holes or galleries of the block. From the tappet cover through a mesh filter in the tappet cover, it flows to the pipe connecting to the inlet pipe of the turbocharger. If the engine continues to run after overturning, maybe due to sticking of the accelerator or due to any other reason, driver is not able to shut off the engine. So if it continues to run, the engine oil is further sucked into the combustion chamber or chambers of the vehicle. So this is what happens in this particular engine. This oil in combustion chamber causes hydrostatic locking. In my part 1, I had just explained that hydrostatic locking is not necessarily by water only. It can happen by any other liquid. For that matter of fact, engine oil which is available in the engine itself, if due to some reason or the other, it can pass on to the combustion chamber, even then it can cause hydrostatic locking. So it is not merely water. It can be oil also, and the engine gets damaged. We have encountered such damages on the engine, and here was a call from a Bangalore surveyor also who wanted to discuss such a loss. I discussed the loss with him as per his query, but I made further studies. Likewise, it might have been encountered by many of our brothers present in the webinar today. So here is a photo of a Bharat-Benz vehicle, 49,000 carrying gross vehicle weight. This is the tappet cover, and one corner of the front corner of the tappet cover, there is a pipe which is alighting down to the engine side. This is an oil filter, from the back of the oil filter, this pipe alights down. I will show you in the next picture. So this is the pipe from the tappet cover. It is coming down from behind the oil filter and these pipes, and here it comes down. So this is the intake pipe of the turbocharger. Now in this case it is plugged. I was told by the dealer engineers and mechanics that now, in order to avoid such hydro-locking in toppled vehicle, what they are doing is that they are taking this pipe down and further down and leaving it to open to atmosphere. So they are just plugging this pipe here without any connection to this pipe, so that such a damage does not occur. But earlier in design, this pipe was connecting with this, maybe to utilize oil vapor temperature for this inlet or something of other consideration of engine efficiency or something like that. I'll not go into that. But this is what is happening now. Now I was told that whichever vehicle comes to them, they make this modification now in order to avoid that hydrostatic locking problem or engine damages. So this goes, and next photograph it will be more clear. So here it is. This is the turbo. This turbo is the intake cyclone of the turbo. Other is turbine cyclone of the turbo. So this intake cyclone, this pipe comes from air filter, goes to turbo. From turbo, this air is sent to the intercooler, and after cooling, this air comes to the inlet manifold of the engine. So this connection they have snapped now. They have plugged this connection, and this pipe is left open to the atmosphere. Now we have a case study. I had surveyed this vehicle. This is the spot. And this vehicle turned turtle upside down on a roadside, and this had damaged its block also. In the first inspection at the dealer position, you can see this block is broken over here. There is a hole in the block. This is broken, and debris of this broken block had also damaged the alternator, hit the alternator also, and damaged the alternator also. So we will see a close-up of this engine block damage. This is the close-up of the engine block. This whole blast had occurred, and this blast had also damaged the alternator. This is after dismantling of the engine. See, this piece had come out from here, from this portion of the engine block. This connecting rod, it was broken. This connecting rod, as a matter of fact, hydrostatic locking broke this connecting rod. Then this connecting rod, as the engine kept on rotating, this hammered and stuck with this block and broke this block also. So this is and some more pictures. This is again the same picture that we have seen already. As this was broken over here, so this oil sump which was sitting here, so this flange of this flange strip of this fixing strip of this oil sump, this also got damaged. This also got bent. Then there was some cracks in the head also. 1, 2, and 3. 3 cracks were seen in the head also. Very exhaustive damage. This alternator was also there. So we had to cover up all these damages. Now these damages are approximately related to the accidental external means. Accidental external means by means of overturning of the vehicle upside down, and then the chain of events continued in terms of continued running of the engine, flowing of engine oil into the combustion chamber, causing of hydrostatic locking, further damaging the breaking the connecting rod breaking the block damaging the alternator also. So all these things are approximately related to accidental external means. Bharat Bank case study, field encounter. So when I was just visiting a dealer of Bharat Benz in connection with my this study for this webinar, I wish to share that field encounter also. I had the experience at a dealership. As already discussed, there cannot be any role of a self-starter in such damage to the engine. So I am further getting confirmed on this aspect that self-starter doesn't have a role. However, the myth of self-starter is so strong that a technically qualified works manager confided with me. I asked him as to what do you do in such cases, and what do other surveyors do in such cases. He just told me that they used to ask the customer that he might have tried to self-start the engine after recovery of the overturned vehicle. Now see, again we are alleging and we are imagining the same thing. Again they put it to the insured or his driver that you recover the engine. It is not that overturned engine upside down. He will just make it upright and just start the engine. It cannot happen that way. He has to check all the things relative to the engine and everything. He may call a mechanic, or he may straight away take the vehicle to the workshop. But since we have seen the damage, engine block head has broken, so we say them that yes, overturned vehicle, oil might have gone to the combustion chamber, but you must have operated self-starter, and thus the engine damage was not payable under the policy. Surveyor would also say, I don't say every surveyor is like that, but due to this myth, a thinking, we are all driven by a certain thinking, including the insurance companies and even the technically qualified works managers, as we are also technically qualified, but we get trapped into that kind of thinking. So again, he says that we tell the customer that yes, you might have operated the self-starter, so this damage is not payable under the policy. Further down the line, the works manager, he referred me to a mechanic. So I encountered a mechanic who showed me the pipeline of engine from tappet to turbo and all this, and facilitated me to take some snaps that I have already shared with you. Now see, one very interesting aspect of this. He told that self-starter of our engine is so strong that it breaks the connecting rod after the engine gets hydro-locked in overturning. So I was very amused at his technical knowledge also. He did realize that in order to break the connecting rod, self-starter has to be that strong enough. So he had that technical sense. But since he was convinced that this self-starter has done it, so he tells me that our engine self-starter is very strong. So he attributes to it to the strength of the self-starter. So here I have a praise for the mechanic who also went with the wind of myth of self-starter causing the damage. But at least he realized that the self-starter ought to have that much capacity to bend or break the connecting rod, as he presumed, and said, "Our engine self-starter is strong." Now, it would be prudent here to just have a look at the engine protect add-on cover. This myth of self-starter uh, causing the damage of hydrostatic locking, it has given birth to a engine protect. Of course, there is one more factor behind this that also I'll discuss. But coming to the relevance of our topic, so I will just discuss this first. So scope of add-on cover, engine protect. I have taken the engine protect cover of New India Assurance Company. Expenses incurred, this operative clause says expenses, it covers expenses incurred in repair or replacement due to consequential damage. See, note here, consequential damages arising out of water ingression. So this is why I say that birth of engine protect is partly from this myth of self-starter causing the damages. So they term all the damages of hydrostatic locking as consequential damages because it is believed that he might have operated the self-starter and self-starter bent the connecting rod or broke the connecting rod and the block, etc. So this cover, add-on cover, covers this consequential damage, leading this consequential damage leading to loss or damage to engine and engine parts, transmission or differential parts assembly, and parts and gearbox parts of the insured vehicle. So whatever damage due to engine, we will stick to engine itself only. So this theory of engine protect, it takes it as consequential damage, and then an add-on cover is devised to cover that consequential damage. And what is this consequential damage? This is defined very well in terms of damage to the engine. The other part of this add-on cover is arising out of leakage of lubricating oil, coolant, and damage to vehicles undercarriage arising out of any accidental external means. So this is another factor to which this add-on cover is very helpful. Many of my fellow surveyors would recall that they might have encountered certain claims wherein the engine of the car has seized, and the story goes that there was some stone that stuck underneath, and driver just listened to a loud thud. He checked underneath, stopped the car, checked underneath, there was nothing, and he carried on his journey. And then after a few kilometers, engine stopped and car stopped there itself. So the result was seizure of the engine. So in that case, we call it consequential damage, subsequent damage. The exact word would be subsequent damage, which is accepted under the policy. If there is any damage to the car and without attending to its reinstatement, we keep on driving the car, and then it further meets with some accident, even if by covered perils, the claim is not payable. So that consequential or subsequent damage arising out of that situation is also one of the factors that gave birth to this engine protect add-on cover. So that is up to that extent okay. But there is another situation where a driver, as I have just narrated, he just peeped underneath the car. He did not find anything, even though the oil might have been leaking in small quantity, and he could not notice it. So he again started the car operated very nicely, and he went on his journey, and subsequently he found that the engine got seized. In that case, in my considered opinion, if that is the continuation of the chain, and even an engineer would think, particularly at night time, there is no leakage of oil, that came to his perception, and he kept on driving. Engine met. So this was just, I would call it approximately related to accidental external means. But in order to avoid the controversy, okay, this add-on cover, if it is there, then it is very easy to pay that claim. But otherwise, that requires a lot of investigation, this and that. So that is there. So this, in that such a case, engine protect would come a easy solution. But it is definitely not in case of water ingression. Water ingression, then in that case, it is not a consequential damage. I would still consider it under standard policy, which pays direct damages to the engine as a consequence, or by accidental external means or inundation. Hydrostatic locking damage, I put it under two perils, covered perils of the policy, either inundation or accidental external means, because inundation water is also external to the car, and its ingression into the combustion chamber is accidental in nature. So this can also fall under accidental external means or under inundation peril. So let's see next. Here scope of cover in consequential damages arising out of water ingression, that is hydrolocking. Here intention of the policy is to cover consequential damages of hydrolocking which are attributed to alleged subsequent operation of self-starter in an attempt to start the engine. This is a great myth. So I don't subscribe to this being a consequential damage. If the damage is covered by the add-on cover, there is no problem. Of course, if add-on cover is there and the damage of hydrolocking is straight away paid, there is no problem. Of course, it is very easy. But if it is denied under standard policy due to absence of engine protect, it is not fair. To my mind, it is not fair, and I would also call upon my fellow surveyors to think and analyze the things in the light of our discussions. Second, consequential damages arising out of leakage of lubricating oil, coolant, damage to vehicles undercarriage. Damage to vehicles undercarriage is that stone or anything stucking with the oil sump, and oil sump further damaging the intake filter or intake pipe of the oil pump. So if that pipe is severed or bent or blocked, then engine oil pump will not be able to lift the oil from the oil sump. So that way also the engine will starve of oil, and it will lead to seizure of the engine. So here consequential damage may be engine seizure or other related damage if the vehicle is continued with drive. Number one, if the vehicle is kept on being driven while the driver knew about impending damage, as I have already discussed. If the driver knew about the impending damage due to, say, he is in a jungle area and due to some fear or something, if he continues driving, it can be termed as consequential and is not covered by the standard policy, and add-on cover is good for that. If, however, if the driver could not know about the coming damage, it does not come to his perception that oil is leaking or oil is no more going to the engine, and he genuinely happens to note the signal, red signal given in the dashboard by the engine, which is uh, getting starved of the oil, then continued driving in good faith, and the damage occurred. It is proximately related to accidental external means, as I have already discussed. But in such cases, it is very difficult to prove the things that way. It is just otherwise anybody can say, yes, I did not notice it, I did not see it, whether it is he's saying in good faith or just to cover up his mistake. So that is a tedious job to prove or unprove. So that way this engine protect comes handy. Hydrolock damage cover under engine protect is okay, as I have already said, but it is not proper to deny hydrolock damage under standard policy due to lack of engine protect, particularly when the loss is not proved as consequential. So this I have already discussed. So derivation from the whole study, cause of hydrostatic locking. So with this discussion again, it is derived that damage to engine due to hydrostatic locking is due to the force of own momentum of the vehicle and not due to the action of self-starter, which is imagined and alleged by many of us. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Gupta sir. Thank you. We have few questions. You can check your WhatsApp number because there is a question which came from two participants with the photographs and the queries. So if you're able to see, you can take this question this time, or else you can. I will give you the mail ID and this thing also, so you can answer for the next time also.
That will be wonderful because I'm not very adept at WhatsApp and other things. Right at the
Right.
moment, it will take me time.
Okay. Okay. So there is a one question from Mr. Love Patel. The vehicle toppled in the pond. Water got in. As all tires are in air, would engine seizure hydrostatic lock may report?
Once again, please. Engine
Yeah.
toppled in a pond.
The vehicle toppled in the pond.
Okay.
Water got in. As all tires are in air.
Hmm.
That means upside down. Okay. Would engine seizure hydrostatic lock may report?
One thing is that when engine goes into the pond upside down, one thing is it may just stall because of accelerator automatically coming to zero position. But let us suppose it continues operating, engine continues running. In that case, since engine is immersed in the pond water, so this air cleaner is exposed to this thing water. So water will be sucked in, and then it will be hydrostatic locking will be happening. But toppling upside down, again there will be some kind of dissipation of momentum. Dissipation of momentum because wheels will be rotating just in the air. Of course, they would be having some power. The results will have to be physically seen. If it is hydrolocked and damaged, then it is damaged due to hydrolocking.
Okay, okay. I hope Mr. Patel has got their answer. If he's not satisfied, we can send him separate mail, okay, or we can take it in detail next time. There is one more question from Mr. Bala Sahib Khate.
Hmm.
He is asking, he has actually sent one case studies, but it is not possible to read entire case studies. I'll give you the brief.
Hmm.
Okay. generally there is a confusion between hydrostatic lock and engine seizure due to starvation.
No, there is a lot of difference. Engine starvation, engine seizure, as we say, all the moving parts will tend to seize and scratch. There will be scratches and seizures between the mating parts of the engine. So that will be entirely a different story. But hydrostatic locking, this will be entirely a different story. There will be bending of connecting rods, or there may be some damage on. There will be not be scratches as such. Scratches इतने नहीं होंगे जितना के वो सीजर में होंगे.
Right.
The same
And,
same line question is from Mr. Ashok Girimaji. What is the difference between hydrostatic lock and engine seizure?
Hydrostatic locking is definitely due to ingress of oil or water into the combustion chambers. And first, we had discussed in our part 1 in diagnostics. We will get definite clue by checking the air cleaner for hydrolocking. And seizure is a different thing. We will start with level of oil, engine oil, and other things, and then see if there are any scratches or seizures. Seizure is just interlocking of the mating surfaces, whether it is cylinder liner and piston rings, cylinder liner and piston faces, or big end and other main bearings. So valve stems. So wherever there are even camshaft bushes, wherever there are mating surfaces, they will try to cling to each other because of lack of lubrication.
okay.
Seizure and hydrolocking entirely different things.
Right. So I will send you this entire case studies which Mr. Balasaheb has given to us. Okay. He's
Seizure,
asking the same about.
let me further explain it. Seizure can also happen if there is loss of lubrication power of the engine oil. The engine oil is not replaced in time. Engine continues with the same oil, and oil loses its lubricating properties with more working and more passage of time. So that can also lead to seizure. Recently, there was a discussion from Anand itself, Gujarat. I had a discussion with one of our fellow engineers. The case was something like that. There was some fault with the engine oil that led to major damage to the engine. Yes, sir.
Okay. So he's further he's asking about the same question about flooding is a basic cover and flood water is an external operating media. However, insurer is denying the claim on the ground that damages are not accidental.
Yes, sir. This is due to this myth only. There is a principle in insurance parlors that if a loss is covered in some other policy, it would not be payable in different policy. Just for example, in standard, if there is an add-on cover for engine damage, so it will not be covered in standard policy. So based on that, they just deny it. I had a lengthy discussion and lengthy interaction with insurers in case of a hydrostatic lock damage. So I asked them, you tell me where it is accepted under the standard policy. They said simply because there is an add-on cover on engine protect, we cannot pay it in standard policy. If there is no add-on cover is not taken, we will not pay it in standard policy. Let the court decide whatever way they want. So this is just a principle. Just as in fire policy, machinery breakdown cannot be covered; it is excluded. In machinery breakdown, there is exclusion for fire. So anything which is covered in one policy will not be covered in another policy, unless and until it is specifically endorsed.
Okay, okay. So, Mr. Gurucharan Singh Modi, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Mr. Gurucharan Singh Modi. Are you there, Mr. Modi? Yes, Mr. Modi. Mr. Modi, you are unmuted now. You can speak. Mr. Modi, we are not able to hear you from your side. Okay. Is there any other question?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Rajkumar has raised the hand, sir, right now.
Okay, okay, take him.
Sometimes the connecting rod itself break and then the accident took place. I have come across such a loss that that is observed in the spot photographs, that the engine oil was drained before the accident place. So this should be taken care of also, sir.
Sir, what I understand from your version is that engine oil had gone drained out, one connecting rod broke. Is it that way?
Yes, sir. First connecting rod broken,
Uh,
block broken, and then the accident took place.
Yes, that is internal. Actually, that if you don't find any other reason, accidental external means or ingression or any other thing, then it is a breakdown. A breakdown could be due to various reasons. Connecting rod could break due to opening of connecting rod bolts, due to I don't know if the vehicle is quite old, then such things may happen. Connecting rod bolt breakage or connecting rod bolt opening out, or there may be loss of lubrication in engine oil, or there may be less engine oil, lesser than the required level, or there may be overheating, various other, but this will 99% this will fall under breakdown.
So
And
the claim
then let me tell you, connecting rod breakage and further engine damage, this is all under breakdown. And then further car meeting with some external object, getting accident, so that accidental portion will be payable.
So engine will not be paid in this case, sir.
The engine will not be paid in this case unless and until it is other way around. If even then we will have to just analyze it.
But,
Other way
but
around means, a car meeting with an accident and then breaking the connecting rod. We will have to rule out the coincidence of breakdown with the accident or contributory factor of accident to the breakdown. These things will have to be analyzed, sir.
the proximate cause is breakage of connecting rod, sir. So the why engine will not be payable? Block. I mean block.
No, engine block, no sir. Accidental external means did not come into play. First, when connecting rod broke, then connecting rod further broke the engine block. That is also breakdown. That is also breakdown, extension of the breakdown itself.
Okay, sir.
Then the car strikes with a tree, say. At
Yes,
that, the moment it strikes with a tree, accidental external means come into play. And subsequent to that, whatever is damage which can be attributed towards that will be paid. Otherwise, connecting rod and connecting rod breaking the engine block, all these things will not be. These will fall under breakdown itself. Just as I tell you, there is a failure of a shocker, say. Shocker broke in a running car. Shocker broke. It fell on the leaf spring. Leaf spring broke. It burst the tire also. All these things are extension of the breakdown itself.
Okay,
Till
sir.
the vehicle overturns. The moment it overturns, then whatever damages are following, these are relevant to the accidental external means.
Okay.
I
Thank you,
hope
sir.
you get
Thank
my
you so much. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, Gupta sir. Thank you for this wonderful knowledge
Thank you,
session. Thank you all the participants. And you can write us for any other question on training@isla.net. Thank you once again, Gupta sir. Thank you all the participants.
Thank you, sir.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Sir, please forward me if there are any queries. Actually, isla.net पे आती नहीं है लोगों की queries है नहीं?
नहीं, training@isla.net है वो.
हाँ, उस पे
It is
आती है क्या?
training@ आती है.
तो वो अगर
Yes,
मेरे किसी भी वेबिनार की आई हो तो वो प्लीज मुझे फॉरवर्ड करवा दीजिएगा. I have delivered
Right,
4
sir, right.
webinars pertaining to any of them. I would love to answer.
Right, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
very much. Thank you, everybody.
Let's meet tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock.
Right, sir. Right.
Thank you all.